Hey horror fans, welcome back to room 237, and I have not just a request for this video, no, it's over here, but this is actually my first ever Patreon request, excuse me. Yeah, I finally made a Patreon. My next video, I'll go more in depth with that, but this is more just about the request. And this was requested by a great subscriber, follower of mine, Jamaral81. The Girl Who Knew Too Much, which is a Mario Bava film. Jamaral81, he's a big fan of Mario Bava. He was pretty much the driving force behind my Bava marathon. He was commenting on every video. I'm a very big Bava fan. And surprisingly, this was not one I got to during my marathon. I don't know how, somehow it slipped. But the thing about The Girl Who Knew Too Much is this is widely considered to be the first Giallo film. Which Giallo is a genre I'm very much into, have been for years. I think Blood and Black Lace, which is also Bava, sort of gets that title. Maybe it's like a Halloween, Friday the 13th kind of title, like with slasher films. There was the one that set it up, then the one that said, okay, here's how you really do it. But this is the one that really gets the first Giallo moniker. And I can see why, and this has become one of my favorite Bava films. I would probably still put Black Sunday at number 1, but this has that cinematography that Bava, because he did his own cinematography, that Black Sunday had. It's still black and white. This version, which is in volume 1 of the Bava collection, I did do a video on this and volume 2. Comes with those in volume 1. This is the Italian language version, and it stars John Saxon, Valentina Cortez, and Leticia Roman, who is our female lead. And for a while, for some reason, I thought it was Barbara Steele. She kind of has similar eyes to Barbara Steele, which the way the black and white and the lighting is, this look she gets with her eyes is very effective. Really helps set up what a Giallo is, which is, it's a murder mystery that mixes horror, thriller, exploitation or sexploitation, and the murder mystery. It does that very well, even for 1963. You have a tourist, in this case the American tourist, visiting a foreign country. Here it's Italy. Witnesses a murder, decides to take the murder in the case, the mystery, in her own hands and try to solve it, even though she's not part of law enforcement. Finds some sort of love interest who, of course, by the end of the film, they're talking about getting married. And there's a few red herrings and false stops within the film. And the revelation of who the killer is someone we've known all along. I didn't really notice some further tropes that would be used. I think that was started with Blood and Black Lace, which would be the black gloves, the mask of the killer. But personally, for me, what I was the biggest fan of in this film was the cinematography. There's something about 1960s films that are still black and white. Black Sunday, this, I'll even say Carnival of Souls, Night of the Living Dead. They don't feel like black and white films past. There's like a darker quality to them. The black is really black, the white is really white. The contrast is a bit high. Like the shot where our lead sees the murder in the beginning, it's outside and there's sort of like this wetness around, like it had just rained, And when the victim falls, there's like these cobblestones. And just the way, like, the wet cobblestones catches the light off the street lights is just the the way the shots look are just completely beautiful. I mean, I love black and white film to begin with, but there's just something about either this era or this style of black and white films that are just, it's the same reason why I loved Black Sunday so much. One of the reasons why I love Black Sunday so much. So, of course, John Saxon is a doctor who is her, which I like John Saxon. Black Christmas, Elm Street 1 and 3. He would go on to work with Argento and Tenebrae. Sadly, I think he was more of a character actor. I don't think he ever really did any leading man stuff. Which, back in his youth, like back then, he kind of looked like a young Jack Nicholson. He was kind of considered Universal's James Dean when he first started. But, because before she sees the murder, there's a mugger who takes her purse and he runs off. She falls and hits her head. So she wakes up, and then that's when she sees the murder. And when she wakes up in the hospital, everyone thinks, because of her state, that she's crazy or an alcoholic. No one believes her. And I guess it takes place on the Spanish Steps, which is in Rome. Which just by looking at it, it looks like a great set for like this kind of film. She's going there to visit her aunt, her health is failing, and John Saxon plays her aunt's doctor. If she gets off the airport, that's when she gets mugged. That's when she sees the murder, which I love how that's shot too, because she sees this shadowy figure, and then when it comes into the ray of light from the street light, it falls down. The knife is sticking out of her back, and I love the score. It has a classical kind of violin stingy score with like this deep drum roll or like a cymbal roll to kind of build up and then punctuate a scene, which is something you really don't get anymore with thrillers or mysteries or horror films. You don't get that kind of score anymore, so I miss that. In fact, while I was watching it, I was like, it's that same kind of violin, and then finally I remember what it was. It reminded me of the Jordy Verrill segment of Creepshow. But anyway, so then her and Saxon team up to try and solve this murder. And they keep they believe maybe Nora is hallucinating. She even sets up this trap with a bunch of talcum powder and string that will, anyone that goes into her aunt's house to kill her will trip and fall and get covered in talcum powder. And then I'm gonna say spoilers here because the beauty about I don't like to ruin Giallos because they're mysteries. Even some of the worst Giallos, the revelation is always surprising, even if it doesn't make sense. You get through this whole mystery that it really is a treat. Again, even when it doesn't make sense. This one, sure. But I don't like ruining Giallo, so I'm gonna say spoilers here. But I do recommend it. If you like Giallos by Argento, Fulci, which Giallos is not Fulci's strength, like it is Argento or Bava, or Sergio Martino or anyone else, definitely recommend this. If you liked Blood and Black Lace, if you liked Black Sunday, definitely check this out. In my messages on Patreon, Jamaral81 did tell me last he checked this was on YouTube. So if you don't own it, check it out on YouTube. Luckily, I was able to have it. But spoilers now. Eventually, they kind of forget about it. The doctor, John Saxon, takes her on all, pretty much the sights to see in Rome. She gets a threatening phone call saying, like, girls who know too much, and if your name starts with D, you could be in trouble. Which, her name is Nora. So I don't know why Nora Davis. Okay. Oh, the American version of this was called Evil Eye, which I think is kind of a dumb title. And her name was changed to Drowson. But because the murder she witnessed is the third in a series of murders, where their last name, A, B, and C, it's an alphabet killer. Which, yes, there was a real alphabet killer in real life. Go ahead and look him up. And they like typical Giallos, they're like, okay, we have this lead, let's go talk to this guy. Or, okay, he's leading us to someone else, let's go talk to him. Oh, he's been in jail forever, or he's been dead for some time. And it all leads up to when we find out that it was... I want to see if it says her name, because I forgot her name. Laura. Which Laura is... Oh, her aunt's friend. She's the one that showed her aunt's house and where she was going to be staying. And she stabbed her husband because he was going to turn her over. I don't think it really went. She reveals that her desire was to steal sister's money, compelled her to murder. From what I was gathering, it didn't really go in depth with what her motivations were. Because Laura was just a friend of her aunt's. Confesses to the killings and explains that she stabbed her husband because of his attempts to turn her over to the police. Laura reveals that her desire to steal her sister's money compelled her to murder. Okay, so that was a little thing that kind of went over my head. Was, okay, so what was she doing? What was her goal? It didn't really have, a thing like The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, or even Don't Torture a Duckling, or New York Ripper, as or opera, like a definite motive that kind of makes sense. Either way. And then, it shows that, and then of course, while she's about to shoot Nora, she is then shot by her husband, who came at Nora when she was at the house, and he fell with the knife in his back. And then it ends with her and John Saxon talking about getting married, and ends with her throwing a pack of cigarettes off something and some guy picking them up. Because there was something about cigarettes in the film earlier. But I really enjoyed this film. Even though some of the finer elements kind of went over me. And I mean, I don't know what it was. I think it was because I was doing two things at once towards the end. But the cinematography alone really is where Bava shines. I mean, I look at this, I look at Black Sunday, absolutely beautiful. And I mean, again, I like black and white films to start with, but there's just something about early to mid, all 60s black and white films that still and sort of awkward angles, like lots of faraway shots, or like while characters are doing something, but up close to get certain reactions. Um, Leticia Roman's, like the shape of her eyes, like she's got this Barbara Steele look that is really great for her like horrified reactions. That score, that classic violin sting with the drum roll, cymbal roll for suspense. It was nice to see a young John Saxon. The black and white Baba cinematography, to me, is the best aspect of this film. It's my favorite. His cinematography has always been my favorite aspect of his films. But this is like Black Sunday if it was a Giallo. And that's probably why it immediately shot up to one of my favorite films of his. I mean, I still love Black Sabbath. Did enjoy Kill Baby Kill quite a bit. Even though I don't think he's done one film that I didn't like or one that I ranted on. But his earlier black and white films just really are my favorites. Black Sunday, I would still put above this. But it's easy to see why this spawned on the Giallo genre into what we have now. And I'm glad it was Bava that brought Giallo to us. And I mean, some things would come in later, like with the later 60s, or like the Argento, like what he completely revolutionized the Giallo. But yeah, I really enjoyed The Girl Who Knew Too Much. So this was my first Patreon request, Jamaral81. I hope you're happy with with this review. I hope I did the film justice for you, but I hope this was worth your money. But so yeah, for Jamaral81, that was The Girl Who Knew Too Much. Thank you for watching.